What's up, guys? Belligerent here with another Palworld video. If you're anything like me, you appreciate details. In my last video, I gave you an overview of what you needed to get set up breeding. We talked about ranches, farms, stuff like that, but we didn't get into specifics about the pals or why I set up things the way I set them up or anything like that. That's what we're going to do in this video. This is part 2 of my breeding series, where I'm going to give you more explanation surrounding everything I do, what pals I use, why I set up my base the way I set it up, tips and tricks, anything that I think might help. Also have more videos planned coming soon for this breeding guide series, so make sure you smash that subscribe button so you know when they come out. Currently, I am using a 2 base setup. The base I'm at now are my ranches. This is where I keep my cows, bees, and chickens, get all my eggs, milk, and honey. Now, I choose to run around and pick all of these up. You could assign a transport pal here. This is purely a problem because of the scale I'm doing. Currently, I go through several hundred cakes per day. So this is the only way that I can keep up with the demand, is to dedicate an entire base to this stuff. If you're not doing it at that scale, you don't need 2 bases. And I'll show you as we go into this, how easy it would be to condense it down into 1 base if you wanted to say small. And in that scenario, you're going to have a transport pal running your base anyway. I could put a transport pal here at this base, but the thing to understand, if in case anybody out there is planning on doing something like I have set up at this scale, if I were running a transport pal, they would run around and pick the stuff up and come put it in my storage container. And as soon as they did, the expiration timer on that food would start. Okay. Most food has an expiration timer. The honey does not, but the milk and eggs do. So when the expiration timer runs out, you lose an item out of that stack. And what's the point of us doing this and setting up this ranch and all of this stuff if we're just going to throw stuff away because we're too lazy to spend 30 seconds running around? So I just spend 30 seconds running around, pick it up all myself whenever I'm ready, because while it's laying on the ground, it has no expiration. Okay, let's jump into the breeding farm. Currently, I am running 5 farms, 5 breeding farms. Again, you don't have to do this scale. This is where you could easily cut out 2 or 3 farms and only run 1 or 2, whatever suits your needs and desires. But this is what I do. So these 4 over here that I'm showing you now, I use more for my selective trait crossbreeding process, trying to create that perfect pal with the perfect 4 passive skills that I want it to have. I keep calling them traits. This one over here, I don't use other than to mass breed something for star levels. This is more of a set it and forget it. I recommend that you build an extra breeding farm. So if you're only going to use 1 breeding farm, I still recommend you build a second one. If you're going to use 2, I recommend that you build the 3rd one. This is my extra breeding farm. Nothing goes on in this farm that necessarily matters other than maybe producing eggs at certain times to give me that extra bump if I'm going for star levels. So if I'm going to use the condenser over here to raise the stars of a particular pal, and I just want to run more eggs. The reason that I recommend having an extra breeding farm that you just don't use is that each breeding farm has a limit of 20 uncollected eggs. So you see those eggs laying over here, okay? Right now there's only 9 because there's only 1 chicken in here. I haven't. And it says they're they're actually sleeping. And they're bugged out currently, so they're not doing any breeding, even though they're in there. So there's only 9 there. It maxes out at 20. So it will automatically stop producing eggs at 20 as long as you have the cakes in there. However, like I have a surplus of cakes, and there's going to be some instances, especially for like my collective trait breeding, where I don't want them to necessarily go through 20 cakes. But I also don't want to have to be here micromanaging every minute to stop the breeding process when there's only 10 cakes left over. So I use an extra farm. This is why I recommend you build an extra farm purely for the storage box. Maybe someday we'll get an actual just cake storage box or breeding farm storage box that we can use, and it doesn't take up all of the space of a farm. But for now, this is what we have. The reason is cake has an expiration. It's a 20-minute expiration. You see, if I move it into my inventory, the timer starts. Okay. In 20 minutes, if I leave this in my inventory, I lose a cake. It expires. In the breeding farm box, you see the timer stops. It's at 19 minutes, 49 seconds, and it is not counting down anymore. So that's why I store all my cakes in the breeding farm box. And that's why I recommend that you have a farm that you're not doing any breeding in, just purely to store your cakes. That's how I do it. Again, you can choose and decide whether that works for you. Also, one thing to know about food expiration times, I don't know if this is a bug or if it's intended to do this way. However, if you click the sort, it refreshes the timer, and that works on all of them. That works on your storage box, that works on your cooler box. You see, if I come over here and I get in my cooler box, right, we're at 171. I click sort, it refreshes to 200. Now for my farm setup. Okay, I started placing my incubators inside the farm for convenience. To be honest, I didn't realize that I could build them inside the farm until I saw other people doing it. So shout out to those people who I saw doing it. It certainly makes it more convenient than setting up. If you guys remember from the first video, I had a little platform where all of my incubators sat, but this makes it more convenient. I also throw some storage boxes in the back because you don't always necessarily want to hatch the eggs that they lay. You don't always necessarily want to put them in the incubators right away. You might be using the incubators for another project that you're working on somewhere else. So it's nice, I have found, nice to have storage options for the eggs. That way, if you have multiple species breeding or something like that, you don't have to fully halt one project because you ran out of incubators. You can just store the eggs from a project that you're going to work on later and then use the extra incubators that are over there. Also, in between the farms, on one side, I keep a campfire. Certain egg types prefer heat, as where other egg types just prefer no heat. And they'll tell you, you see these eggs right here say, seems very comfortable, incubation speed 100%. But over on this side, I don't have a fire. You see it says seems just a little cold, incubation speed 50%. Okay, these are the same types of eggs. These ones want heat as well. So I could build a campfire. Honestly, time is not necessarily an issue for me at the moment, which is why I don't. But I like this setup because it gives me one side hot, one side cold. So it doesn't matter who I put in there. I have a side for them. I might change that in the future, but it's what makes sense to me right now. And then this being in between these two gives this farm this side heat, this farm this side is heat, while this side is cold. And you see there's no fire between this one. And then the fire is between these two, so it gets this side hot, that side hot, and then that side would be cold for that one. So that's one little trick that I have learned as well to help spread the heat around. All right, that is a look and the details of kind of how I run things. Again, like if you want to do selective breeding, you could come in here, just drop off however many cakes you're okay with them going through. Maybe it's 1, maybe it's 5, maybe it's 20, whatever. Okay. Let's talk about the pals that I recommend you run. Okay. First, all of this is going to run off of about 5 active pals. That's how I have mine set up. Okay. And one could argue it's only 4. First one we're going to talk about is Lylene. Lylene handles our planting. She's a level 4 planter. You're going to hear this recommendation from a lot of different videos that you go into, because she's just a level 4 planter. She also has level 2 gathering, so she handles most of the operation on her own. The one thing she's missing is transportation. Because of that, I use Verdash. Verdash also has level 2 planting, level 3 gathering, so he's a little stronger in the gathering. He can help with the planting, but he has the level 2 transport as well. So he helps her out a lot there. That's why we use him. Alternatively, if you don't have a Verdash, you could use a Petalia. She has level 3 planting, level 2 gathering, which is kind of the opposite of what Lylene needs, right? Lylene has level 4 planting. She doesn't need help with planting. She needs more help with gathering. That's why Verdash is better. Plus, Verdash has better transport as well. For watering, you're going to hear this one a lot from a lot of people too. We're going to go to Jantide. He's a level 4 waterer, and it's the only thing he does. So it's kind of a just put him out there and forget it. He's not going to get mixed up in other things. He's just going to do his job. Most of the time I'm running 2 Jormuntides. The reason for that is the mill. So the mill to turn wheat into flour requires watering. I have found that if I only have one out and I start up the mill, they'll come over and water it, but they tend to prioritize the crops. So when there's a crop that's ready for watering, they'll stop what they're doing, they'll go over and water, and then they'll come back. And then when the next one is up, they'll go over and water, and then they'll come back. And it's a lot of wasted movement, wasted time, because they're not working. And so when I run 2, I don't run into that problem. Okay. The other pal you're going to need is for your cakes. You're going to hear this anytime that fire is needed, and that's going to be the Jantide Ignis. And he's a level 4 kindler. I'm going to show you here in this clip the different speed levels of all kindling. So from left to right, we have a level 1, a level 2, a level 3, a level 4, and we have a level 5. If you get Jantide Ignis up to 4 stars, he gets level 5 kindling and set of level 4 kindling. And as you'll see here in this clip, it is significantly different. He gets it done about 25% faster. But wait, that's not all. He wasn't exactly at full speed. I bred this Jantide for attack. He has attack passive skills. One of those being Musclehead. Musclehead cuts his work speed by 50%. So while every other pal in this demonstration had work speed of 70, he only had a work speed of 30 and still beat the level 4 Jantide by 25%. And you might be looking at that and go, well, 25%, not that big a deal. I don't really need to try to get 4 stars on my Jantide Ignis. And just think about it this way. Let's say over the course of 24 cakes, a 25% increase of that, your level 5 Kindler would give you 500 cakes, when the level 4 would only give you 400 cakes. And the same could be said with ingots or anything else that requires fire in this game. So you can find Jantide without any type of fight. It's over here on the map. It's this fire volcano area. I personally found it. There's a little fisherman's point village over here. My first egg I found on top of one of the roofs over there. There's an egg spawn location over there, but there's egg spawns all over the place. You just want to fly around until you find one that is purple with black stripes. That is huge, a huge dragon egg that comes out of this location. I believe is always Jantide Ignis. I could be wrong, but that's all I have found out of there. Now, it takes 116 pals to get to a 4-star. Technically 117 if you're talking about the one that you're raising the star level on. So you probably want to find more than one egg if you want to get the level 5 kindling. And you want to keep your fingers crossed that the first 2 you find, one is male and one is female. But either way, I recommend finding eggs until you get one male, one female. Finally, let's talk about the cooling, because we have a cooler box that keeps our food fresh. The one that I recommend more than any of them is Van Worm Christ. Well, why is that? This guy only has level 2 cooling. Why wouldn't you recommend something better? There's a reason for that. And I'll show you demonstration here. You will see that in this demonstration, okay, the berries timer is at 200 minutes. That is its buffed timer. Its normal timer is 10 minutes. You'll see that when he disconnects, goes to get something to eat, that timer drops from a little under 200 to a little under 10. And then when he reconnects, it goes back up to its original time. The important thing to notice here, and if you didn't and you want to rewind, this would be a good time to, but the important thing to notice is that the timer didn't reset. It didn't reset when he disconnected, and it didn't reset when he reconnected. It kept the same percentage. So let me explain this in a little bit easier way. So that buff timer is 200 minutes. The regular timer is 10 minutes on those berries. Let's say he disconnects when the buff timer has 100 minutes left. That's 50% of the maximum timer. So when he disconnects, it's not going to go to 10 minutes. It's going to go all the way down to 5 minutes, because that's 50% of its maximum timer. It maintains the percentage. Why do I need to know this? Well, here's why you need to know this. Let me show you this demonstration right here. We have a pen king that is connected to this cooler box. And he falls asleep. And when he falls asleep, he is considered disconnected. You see the timer go back to its original time, or the percentage of his original time. So let me give you a scenario. In a scenario where your food has 10-minute expiration timer, let's say nighttime comes and your cooling pal falls asleep with 30% of the timer left. So now 30% of 10 minutes is only 3 minutes left on that timer. Well, that pal is not going to wake up in 3 minutes and reconnect. Nighttime lasts longer than that. And so in that scenario, you're going to lose food. Again, why are we doing this? Why are we putting all of this into place? Why are we building these systems if we're just going to lose food to dumb things like expiration timers? This is why Van Worm Christ is so good. He is a dark pal. Dark pals do not sleep. So he will never disconnect except to go get food. Now, of course, 200 minutes is a finite amount of time, so you do have to come back and refresh your food timer, but only within that 200-minute time frame, which is a lot better than having to go, oh my gosh, it's nighttime, my cooling pal is going to fall asleep. Let me stop what I'm doing, whatever I'm doing, just because it's nighttime, get back to my camp and refresh my cool time. So I don't like the level of cooling doesn't really matter, in my opinion, because when nighttime comes around, that pal is going to disconnect. The timer is going to go back down to the percentage of its original time, and then you risk losing food. And that's why I would recommend this pal, because it doesn't sleep, therefore it never completely disconnects, and only disconnects to go eat. And then obviously you could breed one up with passive skills that reduce its hunger and make him sit there even longer. So that's the overview. Shouldn't say overview. Those are the nitty-gritty details about my breeding farm, how I breed things, why I have things set up the way I have them set up, and which pals I recommend for you. Hopefully you found this helpful. We have many more videos planned in this breeding series. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And also tell a friend about these videos. I'm Belligerent. Peace.